Culture is not just those 3 or 5 values that you put on your website.
There is no good or bad culture, but definitely you need to find a culture fit.
In the end, what you want to do is you want to talk with people that will be joining your project. If you ask a developer, for example, okay, how does your culture in the company look? You'll probably get an honest answer of the operational culture. Maybe he won't know everything. Maybe he won't know how all the mechanisms works, but you can verify the output of those mechanisms.
Hi, my name is Marcin and welcome in Product Odyssey, the series where we explore how to build digital products fundamentally better. And today we'll be talking about something that is never on top of the to-do list of any founder or the CEO, which is organizational culture. Why is it important? Should I care about that? Should I think about it as my responsibility or a partner that I collaborate with? And how that can impact my business? Let's begin. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
So let's start with something obvious. It's a buzzword in most of the situation that we discuss it. Let's define it clearly. What is a culture in your opinion?
So culture is not just those 3 or 5 values that you put on your website. Of course, they're important. They define what's important for you, how you define your company and basically your values. But the important part is also how things happen in your company. And this is something that culture very clearly defines. There are procedures that tell you how to do certain things. There are tools, but very often culture is a catch-all and is really the driver of how things happen in your company.
Right. So it's like the tip of the iceberg, right? We see the values, which is just a manifestation of marketing thing that we used, but manifestation of everything that is happening behind. And what you're saying, it's the processes, the procedures that you have behind it, and the secret sauce of why and how people are doing the things, how they do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it also changes with time because in order to have a good working culture, in the end, you will have certain tools, certain things that are embedded in your company, certain mechanisms. And with time, you need more and more of those mechanisms with the growing team. At first, it's mostly just you and how your culture looks.
Right. Okay. So we are moving away from the buzzword and we're moving closer to understanding what is behind, and it's something really concrete. Why should I care, and what could be the impact of the bad or good culture?
So I would say that there's really no good or bad culture, but rather the one that is better fit for a certain role. For example, if you have an application that has a huge technological debt and you cannot do anything about this, you need a certain culture. If your application is written in COBOL, you probably need also a certain culture that is adjusted to this. On the other hand, if you're building an innovative product, you want to iterate quickly, you want to navigate the digital vortex and basically change things as you get answers from the market, you need a little bit different culture. And I would gladly talk about the last case because here I feel that there are certain things that may be overlooked.
Okay, but before jumping into that, you've mentioned something really concrete, right? So the fact that there are different cultures for different use cases or situations. But before jumping into those types, is there any kind of short description or sentence how you would justify what could be the bad impact of the culture that I will select, or what could be the worst case scenario if I will overlook my culture?
Mm-hmm. So I would say that culture is the one and almost only factor that is fully under your control and that can build your competitive advantage. And in my experience, it helps you in 2 cases. One where you have a crisis, for example, and then procedures and tools, they stop working. So this is when actually the culture starts to catch and really defines how things happen. And a good culture can really save you in this situation. And one example that I can tell you is we worked with a client during the pandemic where basically we were building a tool for handling digitalizing disco industry in Germany. And when pandemic hit, basically, the whole market disappeared. And that's where you are in a chaos and you need to define quickly, okay, what you do. And I think that it's because of the culture that we were able to really iterate quickly, to really talk with the team, to come up with ideas, to suggest to the client, okay, like how we can go forward. Also, the whole team had a proper culture, business and technology got together, and we were able to innovate quickly and come up with an idea. Okay, like let's service big events in Germany, big open air events in Germany, which was a hit. And if you don't have culture that fosters innovation, fosters discussion, proactiveness, openness, then you wouldn't be able to do such a huge pivot in a short amount of time, for example. So that's where, if you have a proper culture, you can handle the crisis. Another aspect is you want to have good quality in innovation, I would say. Mm-hmm. If you have an innovative product and you want to go quickly, change things quickly, then you also need high-skilled people that are proactive, that take ownership, they take accountability, probably the best people on the market that want, a high vector of growth. They want to develop themselves. They want to have an impact on the world, on your company. And that's also something that won't happen on its own. You can get a great person to join your team, but if you want this person to stay in your team and to really contribute, to really use the contribution to the fullest, you need a certain system and a certain culture that will allow this person to be efficient.
The great examples, right? The crisis example and the innovation, but it's somehow, I can challenge that a little bit, because it sounds like if I would have the right people which would talk to each other, mm-hmm. that is the secret sauce. Is it so, or is it something behind that?
That's one important aspect. I would say that there are, of course, multiple tools that embed culture in your company. And at first, I would say that very often it's about you, about how you feel you should work, what you value. And the leader or founders of the company, they very often convey the culture at first. And that's okay. And then you get a company that is adjusted to your culture, to how you want to operate. At some point, the important part is whom you hire, because the first people that you hire, that's the important part. They will convey their culture as well. They will have a big impact on your company. And here, very often you overlook this because you want to tackle certain problems, and you have certain challenges. So you're searching for people that will help you with those challenges. If you recruit people who have wrong culture, this will really influence your business in the midterm, even in the short term. So the hiring is the second one. Mm-hmm. Then at some point, it's also important how you build a leadership in your company. Because if your team grows and you have not maybe 7 people, but maybe 10, 15, then you need leaders. You won't be able to care for the culture on your own. So at that point, it's important how your leaders convey the culture, what's happening there. And also, already at this beginning, at this first stage of the company, I feel that it's important to look into the culture, because here you can make mistakes that will be hard to adjust to in the future. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you can do is you can talk with someone who knows how to build a culture. You can really understand, okay, what I should do. And there are multiple mistakes that you can make. The important part is, I think, that when you don't focus on building the culture, it still happens. You build a culture that is invisible, mm-hmm. that you're not conscious of.
Yeah, you've mentioned lots of good points, and those kind of like even the hints how I can approach and think about that. And 3 that I've noted the most are the fact that, of course, the hiring right people is a key for building the right environment and right reactions. And that's a cornerstone. But you've also mentioned the fact that you need to think about it at the start. And that's something which I don't get fully, because naturally what you would think as a startup owner or as a CEO is, I need to build the product, I need to make money, I need to mm-hmm. basically select the architecture. it sounds like the culture would be something that I would think if I have a 50, 70 people and I will have a HR and pizza party. And that doesn't fit here, right? Is it something that I should think already right now?
Yeah, I would say, definitely you first need to know what you want, what you need to build a product. And here, you don't need culture, you need the outputs of the culture, I would say, the impact that it gives you. And one thing, you want great people, you need certain culture. You want proactiveness, you want certain culture, you want certain values, because if you don't focus on this at first, you will not have this, and this will come out of your culture. You may be not aware of this, but this may happen.
Oh yeah. So there are two other things that are, I think, very important, and I have in my head the picture connecting those. The one thing that you've mentioned is that we need to think about it from the beginning, because it's basically, if you don't think about it, the culture will build it on its own. You don't have a control just about that. Mm-hmm. And this is something that if you will set it up, it's hard to change, like with architecture. If I will set up the wrong architecture, I will have limitations, mm-hmm. and it's very hard to change it after that.
Yeah, it's, maybe I have one interesting example here, because I know about one company where, at some point when the company was already big, the owner of the company, he was surprised why certain decisions are made in a certain way. And in the end, he actually hired a coach that introduced nonviolent communication to the company. And basically at that time, he learned that, okay, like the decision-making process that is in the company actually boiled down to meetings that were organized with him. He basically had a tick in his eye, and people interpreted it as, whenever he had a tick, he was not happy with the decision. And in the end, nice. Yeah. You can have an unconscious culture that is being built that you are not aware of. So it's good to really at least monitor this from time to time, at least know the basics.
So it's sort of like I need to know, to be aware of the culture at least. I don't need to build it like specifically, but at least be aware of what kind of culture you have.
Yeah, it's I would say it's like with planning everything in IT product. You don't need to do everything at once, but at least be aware of when you need to do certain things so that they deliver you the value.
Okay, and it's also connected with you've mentioned that the CEO that has this tick, and previously in the sentences we have discussed that you need to, as a founder, it starts from you. You need to think about it as you are the first person, which is actually starting the culture. Mm-hmm. If I'm the leader, I'm creating culture either through thinking about that or unaware. Is there any kind of hints of how I should build it or how I should start to think about it in the beginning?
I would say that it's good to start with defining values. Not, in my opinion, you don't need to do, the workshop approach and standard approach of defining values, but rather think on your own. Okay, like what I want to get, right? Mm-hmm. And there's also for every value that you get, it's not just advantages that you get. There are also disadvantages, and just like culture isn't good or bad. You want to adjust the values to how you want to operate and also how you want to build your company. And the good example is, you may think that, for example, the value of growth, giving people growth options to grow their career, to grow their expertise, to grow the business that they are in, mm-hmm. That's just positive. But it also has some negatives. And for example, here, if you give this recruitation promise to people, if you get people that want to grow, and in the end you will end up with building some product that is, plain boring, that is doing just the things that were done before, and maybe in the boring technology and without option to change things because maybe you have some constraints that are put on you from outside, then people will start leaving your company, or maybe you won't use the potential. And it's always advantages and disadvantages with every value, I would say. Right.
You've actually made the circle to the starting point that we've discussed. That you've mentioned that there are different cultures that I should implement based on the different situations or a business that I'm in. That's actually interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how I should decide about the culture in the connection with the business that I'm in.
Mm-hmm. So I think that there are so many options, needs, and goals that it's hard to have one answer. But what I would advise is, there are multiple great networks of people that focus on culture. It's if you are not sure about what to choose, it's good to talk, and that's also what we did at the start of the company. That's also things that we discuss with people from time to time. I would really advise to do this because you can get really great tips that are adjusted to you. If you don't have a network like this, or if you want to focus on this more, you can use consulting. There are people that can advise you, and you don't need to, buy huge onboarding process of the culture into your company. You can buy a few hours to talk.
Right, and especially you don't need to go into the direction that it's a soft thing, right? So it's like the non-violent communication training, or it's let's train from culture and marketing and values. It's also the concrete things like procedures that you can implement, or ways how you do certain things.
Yeah,
right?
and that's more and more important when your team grows, because at first it's just you and a few people, and you can handle things most of the time. But when your team grows, it's good to look at the culture in more conscious way, and at some point in your company you will get culture that is embedded into your procedures, into your tools, into other aspects of your company that will enforce the culture. And there's one great saying that a good culture is hard to describe, but culture is easy to describe, but then it doesn't work very often. And this is often the case, that some things in your company, they will just, if you define the culture well at first, they will just start appearing. And the things that are fairly easy to pinpoint, like first thing is you need to have a recruitation promise that is in line with your culture, that is unique and actually describes your company. And then you can get people that believe in this. Then you get people who are driven by your culture. They're more engaged. They really feel that, okay, like they're in a good place. That's important. But also just the recruitation promise is not enough, because at some point you also need to make sure that this promise is fulfilled. You need to monitor this. You need to make sure that whenever, for example, someone breaks a culture for some reason, because your team grows, maybe you have a few people and then something happens and you recruited someone who doesn't operate according to the culture, what you do, then you need, basically processes that give feedback to people, that verify if they're working according to the culture. Then at some point you need processes to make sure that your leadership, and leadership is a very, I'm using it in a very loose term. It's not about, some director, but leadership that you build within your company. And ideally, everyone could have some leadership within him. But how you consciously build this is, again, another process that you need to take care of. There are then other tools that appear with time. Like, for example, you want to have a knowledge exchange process. Maybe you want to have a culture where you have a few teams and you want to make sure that those teams exchange knowledge between each other, that you have this innovation, that you don't have those silos of information. That's another process, basically, and another mechanism that you need to set up in place. There are multiple things like this that you omit at first, and then at some point when the company grows, you need more and more.
That's fascinating, because what you are saying right now is that we've moved from talking about the culture as something as a soft thing to actually building the processes. We talk about processes a lot because it seems that the culture is a result of conscious processes that we implement. Like you have mentioned the recruitment promise. So you work on the recruitment in a specific way to implement that. You also work on the process of the knowledge transfer or the building leadership in, which is concrete process that you need to build and think about that and define. It sounds like it's not only a soft training, it's about hard work to build it. Like you define architecture and agile way of working. You also build processes based on what we call a culture as a buzzword, but as a result, focusing on the result, what you want to get, right?
Yeah, and I feel that for us, for example, it took probably 2 years to really get to the mechanisms of culture that we wanted. That took some time, that took a lot of discussions. And then after that time, it's also, a continuous process where you improve things, but you usually improve things where this gives you the value, where you feel like, okay, I'll introduce this process in order to get this result. And then it's a constant approach. And again, with the growing team, your needs change and you get more and more challenges.
So you can fine tune it. You can actually make it better. It sounds like you have the service or a tool. So it's culture as a service, right? Almost, or it's a culture as a tool that we use.
Yeah, and it's it needs to pay back. It needs to give you the value, and you can get this. One is great people. Then there's engagement. There's understanding of business, and when you get people that really understand the business of the project they're working on, and they can give you insights that change your business, that's when it pays back. Like we had one situation where a developer, he felt a little bit burned out on the project because actually there was a lot of repetitive work, and this was a really great architect with a lot of skills, and we thought about what to do with this. And after talking with the client that we're cooperating with, we decided, okay, maybe let's give him some breathing room, something that would allow him to feel a little bit better. And we told him, okay, maybe let's not focus on things that you were focusing on. Let's say, tell us what you like, what you feel would be important, what you would like to do. And he decided, okay, and that was in 2020, I feel. And he said, okay, maybe I'll focus on the AI algorithm for optimizing reservations on the system. And it was his pet project that basically came out of his need for having an impact, for really changing things. In the end, it turned out to be a critical feature that really transformed the business. And that was an example of the culture that first didn't work because we didn't fully use the potential of this expert. And in the end, also a change that adjusted how we did things that really built this impact.
But that was not a gut feeling, right? That there was the process or the system that actually leads you to asking even that question and thinking about that.
Yeah, that was the feedbacking process, and that needs to be regular because maybe we could have caught this up by chance, but maybe he would just decide, okay, I want to leave the company. I'm burnt out. I don't want to,
Okay, so that's not only the process, but it's like you think about the results of the business. We want to foster innovation. We want to be prepared for a future. And therefore, if you want to have that, you need to have people which will actually think about the future and have a time to do that. And again, to have that, you need to have right processes and allow to do that. So it's from the results, you define the mechanics or the engines that makes it happen, right?
Yeah, and also you need to build those mechanisms in a way that they don't cost too much, that they don't...
to optimize it, right?
Yeah.
And we have it, you're mentioning 2012, 2010, 2020. If you move back, most of the companies have lots of time to build it. They would fine tune it and they would actually be better. But it seems it takes lots of effort. And especially you need to have experience to build it right. Not only have a trainer that will go in and do a training, but you need to build it, fine tune it, and have experience. If that's so expensive, if I'm a CEO or a startup owner, how can I think about that? Can I use different company to help me in building that kind of cultural engines of growth? Or can I outsource that even?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say there are a few approaches you could take. One thing, maybe you have amazing people that know how to build culture already in your team. That's you can handle this on your own. If not, you can think about getting a person like this, planning the time for this person to really build processes, discuss how it should be done in time. If you don't have this or don't want to invest in this at first, you can also use networking. You can communicate, and then you will tackle some aspects of culture. You will avoid the biggest mistakes. If you talk with other people, and there are multiple communities that are great for this. Then another approach is you can get a consultant to just talk to really help build culture well. And you can also have someone who will actually do the introduction of the culture mechanisms to your company. It will take time. It's also expensive. Another approach is to actually use another company that already has a culture set up that that's something that is sometimes overlooked, that you can actually do this, but you can get a company that will share their culture with you and their mechanisms, so that you don't have to build everything from the ground up. You can start already running with the culture, using the mechanisms, for example, onboarding their team first and then introducing your people, and then transferring their mechanisms to your company more and more, introducing this with time. And there are companies that are happy to actually do this, to really transfer their systems, their engines into your company.
Oh, that's actually interesting, because if we take the partners, in most of the cases, we're taking care of how they work, what kind of process they have, if they are agile, if they are lean, or what kind of architecture they use. Sometimes we think about how they hire, because we need to have the right people. But then in the end, we rarely think about what kind of engines for a culture they have, and should I even care, right? And what you're saying is that I can actually focus on that and even learn from it, or actually copy it or be influenced, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to copy things just by, taking the output of the thing. But when you have someone who first, introduces this in your company and shows you, okay, this is how we do things, and then explains you, okay, why we do this way, then it's much easier to actually, copy this into your company, to modify it to your needs, and to have something that is really working.
So there is one question on that, because we've talked about the thing that there is no good or bad culture, but definitely you need to find a culture fit, and also you need to verify if what I'm saying is my culture, it's in reality is there. Is there any way how I can verify the culture of the partner that I'm working with?
Yes, sure. And I would say that it's really important, because whenever you start cooperating with someone, the culture they have, that this can really help your business, or in some cases this can really hamper your business. And one thing is, of course, you can check their website, you can check their values that they put there, you can talk with the people that are in front of the company, so the owner, maybe salespeople. But then another thing you should do is to talk with people that will be on your project, because if you ask the owner of the company, he will, of course, describe the culture beautifully. And sure, it will already give you an overview of, okay, does it align with you? But in the end, what you want to do is you want to talk with people that will be joining your project, that especially those, for example, that will be responsible for maybe transferring some culture knowledge to you, but also the team. And if you ask a developer, for example, okay, how does your culture in the company look? You'll probably get an honest answer of the operational culture. Maybe he won't know everything. Maybe he won't know how all the mechanisms work, but you can verify the output of those mechanisms. Then another thing I would say is, test, because talking is one thing, but then you get the theory of the culture. If you have maybe, a few companies that you're considering, just test how working with them looks, and whether, they have this, whether they transfer the knowledge fully, whether they are really true partners. And that's, a broad topic.
Right. So I can test the culture. I can make sure that what they are saying is really there, or I can ask the question how you are making that kind of value a reality. So if you are saying you are innovative, you are thinking long term, what kind of processes inside, what kind of mechanics you have that are making that happen? Yeah,
and maybe important part is that when you're talking with a potential partner, you should check, okay, whether they're conscious about their mechanisms, because they may even have mechanisms in place, but if they're not conscious about this, it will be hard to transfer them to you. But if they know, okay, why things work this way, it's much easier.
Yeah, you cannot improve something that you cannot see and you don't measure in one way. So also depends on if we're talking about the culture, I need to be also aware. So it's not a slogan, it's also every engine that is behind that is actually producing that. Either you're aware of that or not, right?
Yeah.
One very last thing that I had as the interesting area to actually focus on, and this is the case of, you've mentioned of the culture fit, and that I need to have the same culture or a culture fit, which means either the same or a similar culture to work.
Not always.
Yeah, exactly. And this is probably the area that we want to experiment. So when I want to intentionally have a different culture between me and the partner or a subcontractor that I'm working with.
So I could imagine a few cases, and that's also something that we do. Like maybe you have this one aspect of your project where you have an old code you cannot change, and you need someone who will be okay with working on this code. Then it's good to find a company that is really good with this, and that their recruitation promise is in line with this. If you do it yourself or get a wrong partner, people get burnt out. But there are companies that are perfectly okay with this. On the other hand, maybe you need a specific culture to achieve a specific goal. Like, for example, you may want to promote your product through open sourcing or in the open source community, or maybe you want to use certain open source solutions. And there are better cultures for this to make sure that people that are in your company will also be active in the community. That's hard to build, for example. It's also hard to build to a team that could create great content. There are certain aspects where you can get a culture and have this in a small part of your company that will actually help you achieve a certain goal.
Okay, and then you're mentioning the fact that the different cultures for different endeavors or different goals, and I can imagine at least two examples of like a very to the earth examples of what will be the difference in this kind of case. If I want to enter a new area, like very specific AI area or a research area, probably I want to focus on learning, right? So it's not the decision making, not strict processes, but encouraging learning, starting from the low bar and going up. I can imagine the second, like a case where the experience and elite level would be the culture that I'm after. Like if I'm in the legal area, right? I need to have the best and the best. And then there will be different processes that are supporting that. Any examples or any areas from your side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it can work both ways. But for example, it's a good case with a compliance-heavy environment. You need a certain culture to handle this well. And it can work in a way that you want to stay innovative, but you want to have this one part where you focus on the risking things. Like when maybe that's not compliance heavy, but that's risk heavy when you're, for example, operating on blockchain and cryptocurrencies and smart contracts. You want to have a certain culture that is really focused on making sure that you don't mess up. And it's really hard to build this in your company while staying innovative. So that's one good example. Another one is, maybe you are a larger company that has a lot of compliance already, and you feel like your teams are not innovative enough. That maybe you go slow. Then it's sometimes worth to, for innovative products or even to test things for kind of an R&D approach, get a team from outside that will actually at first maybe, do the research project for you or do the innovative project for you. And in the end, will allow you to transfer your own team into this small team. Mm-hmm. And then you can have a more innovative team within your own company.
Okay. That's. I have a feeling that we have moved pretty well from the buzzword and to actually point out to specifics of what is the culture, why I should care about that, and how I can even test it if basically I'm working with a partner or with the other contractor. But then let's try to summarize the most important things from your side. Like if you'd have 3 hints for a CEO, CTO, or a founder, if they are thinking about the culture, what would that be?
I would say first you need to know what you want to get from the culture. if you want to get, great innovative people, great experts that have impact on your project, that's actually an output of the culture. So know what you want to get, in what environment you are at. Second, prepare a plan. At first you can focus on certain things that are important, but know when it's worth to invest more so that you get actually important output out of the culture. And third, I would say it's good to use the network. It's good to use the knowledge of others. You can go quicker. And it's not necessary to already, use an external team to implement your culture, but at least, build a network, talk with people, know how to do this well, what works, what doesn't, and how the culture can impact your business, actually.
Amazing. Very concrete points that I can think about that. From my side, I would add that think about the culture as a spider, if you can say so, right? So it's like with the fear there. If I don't know where the spider is, it's where you are fearing the most, right? So know how actually our culture is built right now. Be aware of that. Don't ignore it, because it will be built, even if you know it or not. And not knowing how it is built is the worst thing that can happen. The thing that you have mentioned also, and I'm building on top of that, is the fact I need to define the culture differently for different goals in my business. And then the last thing is the fact that it's very hard to do, but it can be a competitive edge, competitive advantage for you, especially in the times of uncertainty and dynamic movement. It can be your safety net. So if I'm building processes right, values there, the culture there, people will react in a way that you would expect, even if you are not there or we are moving extremely fast. That's a case for me why culture would be or should be on top of my agenda, even though I'm starting with a business.
Yeah, at some point you can actually use culture as a tool that also have a good return on investment.
Oh, something concrete, right? So culture as a service, as we have mentioned, or culture as a tool, that should be somewhere as a service that should be sold on the market. But yeah, exactly. This is a concrete thing, not a buzzword, and have a real result on your business and on your revenue. Great. I think that this is all in our episode right now. We'll be talking more about different things coming from it, but for today, I guess it's covered from the topic perspective. So thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, feedback, feel free to find us on the channels, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Feel free to drop us a note. And for now, thank you and see you on the next episode.